Welcome to Couch Conversations with the Doctor. So, what's tonight? It's Monday night, and on Mondays, it's time for Couch Conversations with the Doctor. So, we want to remind everyone to and share some more because we are now here. I got your questions. we are here to talk about all the things that you want to talk about because this is your show. Remember to chime in, placing your comments in the comment section, or you can also send an inbox if you'd like to stay anonymous. As always, we're going to go around and introduce our great guests that are here on this evening. Yes, it is good to see Dr. Pete back. Someone is saying it's good to see Dr. Pete back. So that is fantastic to see Dr. Pete back. We're going to start off with my colleague. That's Dr. Douglas Graham, who is here with us. And you know what's different about Doug today?
What's
Doug is
that?
not standing through the show. Remember how
That's
Doug would
right.
stand through the show, and he actually got us all to stand through the show. Doug is sitting. Doug, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nikki. I'm a retired physician. I worked in the western suburbs for 30 years and for 2 years in the congressman's office. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here, and I'm going to try and answer your questions if I can.
Outstanding. Want to also say that we have Dr. Mason back from his travels. He's all back and he's here with us on this evening. Dr. Terry Mason, the urologist of the stars, who is retired and says that he doesn't do this type of work anymore, but we really know what's going on. Dr. Mason, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nikki, and thank you, Congressman, for providing this forum for us to continue to have this. And I want to send a special shout out to Pete, and who was doing this, as I understand, in the beginning by himself. Is that right, Pete? So that was a lot of work to do, and I appreciate that you were here to do that. And I would be happy to answer any questions that I can. Thank you very much.
Outstanding. To the weight loss guru, the one who really is the Wolfgang Puck of the keto diet. That's our very own Dr. Tony Hampton. Dr. Hampton.
Thank you, Nikki. Always happy to join you guys. Had a wonderful day at clinic. Just really excited about going to work and celebrating again the success of the patients I see. One of whom I'm gonna talk to over the weekend about his success, how he was able to reverse his diabetes in about 3 to 4 months, I think it was. And it's such just the expression on his face when I told him he didn't have to take his metformin anymore, it was just a beautiful thing. So for all those who are listening out there, you can heal, you can change your trajectory and your family's trajectory by simply learning some basic principles. So I'm always happy to be here. I love my colleagues. And again, shout out to Dr. Pete and Nikki and the Congressman for getting this party started. How long ago was that anyway, when you guys started this?
Maybe was that 2 years ago, Nikki?
About 2 years.
It's been almost 3 years now. It's been almost 3. We started right when COVID started.
Oh, there you go. Good time.
When you're having fun.
That's right. Well, thank you guys, and let's keep going.
So to the guy everybody's been wondering, where has Pete been? You've been inboxing us, asking us, where has Pete been? As you can see, Pete has on his Howard hat and his Howard t-shirt, because Pete has been getting kids back off to school. So he is now sitting at home because he has put his babies back in class, and he is back here with us. So Dr. Pete, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Yeah, Nikki, and to my esteemed colleagues, I'm happy to be back. I'm grateful for yourself and the Congressman for creating this forum for us to connect with the community. So yeah, like you said, I have been getting my babies back to school. I got one more to get back to Baton Rouge at LSU, and then I got one at Howard and one at Xavier. So I'm thrilled to be back so we can help dispel any myths about what it means to be healthy and what our community can do. Many times we hear about all this stuff about health and we act like there are no actionable activities that you can do to help prevent disease and early death. But this panel is here to help dispel that myth and to get our community mobilized to do something different. And we know that a lot of our community has been traumatized by various aspects of poverty and racism and all those other things, but we can help ourselves by living a different life. So I'm excited about sharing that today.
Outstanding, outstanding. So for those of you who are asking, where's Dr. Miller? Dr. Miller is in a seminar and he will be with us on next week. And Dr. Maya is just a little tied up just as well. We don't know if she's going to join later, if she'll just see us on next week, but you're in great hands. You're in great hands. To the man who makes this possible for us on Mondays, to the one who always teaches us that true wealth is health, that's our very own Congressman of the Illinois 7th Congressional District, Congressman Danny K. Davis.
There are so many exciting things going on in Chicago this time of year. The Bud Billiken Parade came back in absolute style on Saturday, and there were thousands and thousands of African Americans out on King Drive in the Bronzeville community, enjoying themselves, having exercise opportunities. There were thousands of young people marching. The South Shore Drill Team, one of the best in the nation, and lots of adults, because the children could not have been there except that they had adult supervision. And the adults who brought the children, I want to pay tribute to them, because there are a lot of people who talk about what is needed, and then there are other people who actually do what needs to be done. And it's those people in the arena, those people who are taking the blows, those people who are actually doing it. So I just had a wonderful, wonderful weekend. I mean, I must have walked at least a mile Saturday. I hadn't intended to walk in the Bud Billiken Parade, but once I got out of the car and decided to shake a few hands and all, I just walked to the end of the parade, bad back, walking stick, and all. And then I just spent the rest of the day. I went out to the Taste of Bellwood. And it looks like every citizen in Bellwood, Illinois was at the Taste. And the mayor and I must have walked around to about 100 vendors, chatting with them, partaking of what they had. They have an outstanding mayor out there in that little town, a fellow named Andre Harvey, who is one of the absolute best in the West. So I just enjoyed myself, had a wonderful time. Then Saturday, I went out. Sunday, I missed church and went out with some of the fellows who worked with me, and we passed out flyers. And, I ran into one of the wealthiest people in Chicago, and he was out in front of a large apartment building that he owns. But he owns a whole bunch of them. And he was out there cutting the grass and so forth. And I couldn't help but laugh when I saw him. And the two of us couldn't help but laugh, because here we were on a Sunday morning out doing physical work. And I also knew that he was interested in faith and all of that. And so I jumped out of my car and said, I was just thinking about Paul's admonishment to Timothy. And Paul said to Timothy, Study to show thyself approved. A workman needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the words of truth. And I talked to some kids later, and I mentioned this guy because here was one of the wealthiest guys in Chicago, out cutting hedges himself on a Sunday morning. And he easily could have had somebody else do it. He didn't have to do it at all. I mean, he must be a mega wealthy person in terms of what he owns and who he is. But work is indeed a virtue. So I want to commend all of the physicians who come and share with us on a Monday evening, working, imparting information to the rest of us so that if we use what we learn, chances are we'll learn to live a bit longer. So thank you, gentlemen and ladies, for doing that. And as the songwriter says, let's get it on. So,
Oh, I muted myself. Okay, I'm so sorry. Outstanding. So, as we promised our viewers that we would answer their follow up questions that they had from last week, we're going to jump right into that. So, Pete, I know that monkeypox has been something that you've been working on kind of diligently just as well. And had a couple questions left from last week that we had actually received them repetitively. So we made sure that we put them up front to make sure that they got answered. So the first question is monkeypox and chickenpox the same thing?
Yeah, so Nikki, they're not the same thing. They are from the same family of viruses, but they're not the same virus. And so, we should just know like monkeypox comes from the family of or the orthopox virus. Okay. And so much like you have several cousins and you have like your second cousin and then your third cousin, then you have your third cousin once removed. So monkeypox and smallpox are more related than monkeypox and chickenpox.
well,
Okay,
the
well,
thing I say, let me tell you, thinking about that and the treatment and producing, manufacturing, and developing what we need, I can't help but be reminded that on Friday night of last week, we generated $580 billion to go into the American economy. Now, $580 billion is not chump change, not even in Chicago. And it's going to allow a lot of things to happen. It's going to give us the opportunity to reduce the deficit. There's some people who don't like to be in debt. They don't like the idea that we owe anything. So we're going to be able to reduce the deficit. We're going to be able to cap the amount of money that seniors on Medicare will have to spend for insulin. The first insulin that I bought cost me $200. Now you're going to be able to get it for $35 a month. And nobody's on Medicare is going to have to spend more than $2,000 out of their pocket during the whole year to pay for prescription medicine. Well, that's a lot of good stuff. And I can't help but be excited about it. Whether you're going to treat the monkeypox, the elephant pox, chicken pox, or any other kind of pox, takes a lot of money to do it. And so I'm feeling excited because we did that Friday night of last week.
I'll add a comment real quick.
Fantastic.
I appreciate
Oh,
your
go ahead.
comments, Congressman, because they, you know, when you're serving communities that struggle, and as I'm bridging people from medicine to getting off medicine, I need something to protect them. So it's really nice that they'll have access. And I see my seniors literally cutting their medicine in half because they can't afford it. Sometimes they just don't take it. I literally had a patient today who was lost to care for a year, and when you really start to peel the onion, some of that was because of lack of resources to pay for medicine in what we consider the greatest country. So it's really shameful that we don't make sure people have medicine. So, but just to go back to what Brother Pete was saying about monkeypox and the orthopox virus family, what I did learn as I kind of thought about it and reviewed it, it's definitely, you know, related. It's in those families. Smallpox is probably the closest relative. But think about this: smallpox was eradicated due to vaccines in the 1970s, and when you think about that, um, how that's amazing. It was eradicated. So the first message I have for you guys: vaccines are they matter, right? So if you have vaccine hesitancy, imagine a world without vaccines. What would that look like? And then you hear monkey in the term because the monkey language was because in the 1950s when they first identified it, they found that it was a close contact with monkeys that kind of led to it. But what they also found later is it's not just about the monkeys. All small rodents can actually transmit the virus. So that's important to understand as well. And in terms of where it started, the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is in Central Africa, and when it first occurred there, more recently, 10% death rate, which is a horrible death rate. I mean, 1 out of 10 people died. Then it went to West Africa, I think, and then the death rate went, down to 1 to 2%. So less people were being harmed by it. The very good news, from my understanding, Brother Pete, when I looked it up, we have not had a single death in the United States from monkeypox yet. And so that's really good news. And a few days ago, we had about 14 or 1,500 cases. So I think it's really nice to know that this is not the same as COVID, but it is good that we have questions about the origin because we got to know where things get started so we can find a solution. So I'll just stop with that.
Yeah. So, Tony, thanks for that. So, I wasn't sure where the questions began, but you're right. The main reservoir for monkeypox is rodents, and then it's rodents that came in contact with monkeys, and then there was about 20 years ago there were some families that that took prairie dogs in as pets, and this was in Canada, and so those prairie dogs had contact with the rats that had monkeypox. And so there was an outbreak about 20 years ago that we controlled and contained. So I just want to keep people encouraged that, again, the vaccines do work. People are always concerned about, well, how effective is the vaccine? About 14 days post your second shot of Janios, you have maximum immunity to the monkeypox. Now that maximum immunity is only about 85% but it's just like COVID. There's nothing 100% of nothing. Go find something that's 100%. I guarantee you it ain't it. Okay, except for Jesus. That's neither here nor there. That's for another conversation. But now, um, but now, but so it is definitely true that vaccines help. We're reserving the vaccine for the communities that are most at risk. Um, One, people who have exposure to someone with monkeypox. Two, communities that are more likely to get monkeypox. And then three, people who handle the monkeypox virus in terms of laboratory technologists and things like that. So we're reserving the vaccine for people who are the most at risk. Now, there is some discussion around potentially changing the dosage so that we don't have to use as strong of a dose. So instead of giving intramuscular, meaning deep inside the muscle tissue, vaccine injections, we're considering giving intradermal, which is slightly less of an injection, which means we can use less vaccine, which means we have more vaccine to give people. So I'll say that, and then maybe we have other questions, and if not, but I'll say in terms of symptomatology, people typically get like prodromal symptoms, like flu-like symptoms, and then comes the rash. That rash is very distinctive. If you see it, you won't ever mistake it for many other things, and it comes in all in one stage. Unlike the chickenpox, you'll see in different stages of development. Right? You'll see them macular, you'll see them raised, you'll see them vesicular, but this is all one stage. They show up typically on the extremities. Or the oral pharynx, or you may, and this particular outbreak, we're seeing more anal genital rashes, which is, right around your genital area and the anus, or your, typically as people call it, the butthole, if you will. So you'll find the rash congregating in that area, this particular outbreak, but typically it's extremities and trunk and the oral pharynx and mouth.
Outstanding. We want to say hey to Johnny G. Johnny, I'm going to come back to your question. Nellie is here with us, Nellie King, and she says, good evening to everyone. Mary Hunt is here, and she says, thank you for this life-enhancing information. I see Cola is here. We're going to get back to your question just as well. Mary Ballinger is here, and she says, good evening to everyone. And also, the former chief of Maywood, Chief Talley, is here, and he says, will the Lorian, actually, we're going to get back to your question just as well. I want to get these monkeypox questions out the way, and then we're going to come right back to your questions that you have here. The next question says, can you give monkeypox to your pets like you could give COVID to your pets?
Yeah, recently they found out that it is transferable. So on top of the isolation recommendations that we're advising people, the CDC did say you should minimize your contact with your pets. They are advising you should not be washing your pets down with any sort of disinfectant, anything like that. Do not try to euthanize your pets. We're just asking you to minimize your contact. Have someone to take care of your pets for at least 28 days or until the rash completely covers over, where they have new skin. Because typically what happens is you'll get a papule that will eventually turn into a pussy like bump, if you will, and then it'll scab over, and then new skin will form. Once that new skin is formed, that then you are no longer considered to be contagious, and then you can obtain your pet back. But you don't want your pet to be around you, and you want to make sure your pet has minimum contact with any sort of clothing or anything like that you might have had contact with, and you want to and again, the transmission is not as effective in terms of the fomites that might, or the little eggs that might live on the clothing, but the main thing is not have your pet touch your rash itself. So you want to keep, when you are in isolation, you want to keep on long sleeve clothes, make sure the rash is covered, make sure you have on clothes, and make sure that your rash is covered with like a gauze or a Band-Aid or something like that. But you should have someone else take care of your pet.
And I'll only add, Nikki, real quick, that the pets are, pets. So they tend to be more prone to biting, scratching, and things like that. And if you have a pet that's infected, then a bite or a scratch is going to have a shorter incubation period than, just a superficial touch. So it may only take, maybe 8 to 9 days to show symptoms with that exposure, where it may take 13 days with just a droplet. And also keep in mind that there are droplet spread potential. I wouldn't think that's the main way to get it, but the droplets are part of what is possible. So keep that in mind as well. So you want to keep the pets away from you, just like we do with humans. But if you get a bite or a scratch, then you really want to look out for symptoms a little faster.
Okay, Connie Taylor is here with us, and she says, good evening to everyone. Tanya says, I haven't seen any information about the FDA approving this monkeypox vaccine. Should we be concerned about this new vaccine? So let's remove that myth about this new vaccine.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the reality is this vaccine was part of our stockpile to protect us from smallpox. It did get emergency authorization for the use for monkeypox. Again, there's so close of a cousin, right? So it would take, years of research to, and with just monkeypox patients to have to use this, to say, oh, the FDA is now saying it's approved for this. We got emergency authorization to use this for monkeypox, because monkeypox and smallpox are so similar of a virus, and it comes from the same family. So I understand where she's going with this, but um, the reality is we don't have enough of this vaccine to use for patients that need it. And it is true that we had about 20 million vaccines available that that expired. So, you know, um, it was being stockpiled for a bioterrorism war, which hasn't happened yet, and so that's one of the reasons why we only have about 1.5 million doses, and it's expected we should have 1.5 million by the end of August. By early 2023, we should have 2.5 million doses. So we are ramping up, and to help protect the community and to control it, so that it doesn't become a huge problem.
So this is nothing new. This is not a new
No,
vaccine.
no,
Very
we
good.
no, it's absolutely not new. Again, we had
Okay.
20 million doses of it to help, control in case we had a biological war. Um, and
I just
again,
want to make sure that Tanya got heard you when you said this is
ab-
not new. I'm just making sure so
yeah,
she can share that information just as well. This is
absolutely,
not new. People have had this vaccine before.
yes,
It's
yes,
it's just it's making its way back around now. So I wanted you to
yeah,
make sure that we share.
and there's another vaccine as well. It's called ACAM 2000. That vaccine is an alternative to Jynneos, but right now we've gotten emergency authorization to use the Jynneos first, and if patients can't tolerate that, then we can go to the ACAM 2000.
And I'm gonna tell you right now, if you're waiting for the vaccine, I wouldn't hold my breath. And I'm gonna say the reason why I'm saying that is because we're gonna target high risk individuals first. So if you're not immunocompromised, elderly, at risk, and I'm not even sure they may do the healthcare people, who knows? But if you're not high risk, stop waiting for the vaccine and start taking care of your health and lifestyle. Because I mentioned when we started, nobody's died yet, but if you're at risk, you're highly vulnerable, then you're the kind of person that could die. So let's work on this lifestyle agenda first. And just as Brother Pete was saying, the ACAM 2000, which is kind of a replicating vaccine versus a non-replicating. The bottom line is that it has more side effects potentially. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this other vaccine first. But at the end of the day, I'll tolerate, once it's available, a little pain, a little soreness, a little redness, a little tiredness. I'll take that any day over having some type of virus that can harm us. So again, lifestyle first, drink your water, get your sleep, reduce your stress, and then when it's available, we encourage you guys to get it.
All right, outstanding. Can, if you got monkeypox, can you get it again?
That's a good question. So the primary form of transmission is skin to skin contact. There has been some transmission from respiratory secretions, as well as from clothing and articles, towels, and things like that. Um, Surfaces on surfaces, but that transmission is far less than direct contact with the virus itself. So to answer that question, I mean, just logically speaking, you probably can. Now the reality is, because you've had the monkeypox virus, that means you're going to develop antibodies for it, which is the whole premise behind giving you the vaccine. How long does those antibodies last is still something that's to be determined. And we'll wait for guidance from the CDC regarding that. Because, it's the same debate. People would say, well, if I had COVID, isn't that just like having the COVID vaccine? Well, we found out that although you may have had COVID, your antibody response does wean over time. Whereas even with the vaccine, it weans over time, but it's around a lot longer. So we're still waiting from the CDC to hear what the exact time length we have if you've had monkeypox, and what is your antibody response and how long would that last?
I do
All right. Well,
have,
do we
I do
need to?
have, I'm sorry, I do have some good news in that back in 2003 when they had, some cases of this, I don't think it was in this country. There were actually,
Well,
uh,
it was here in 2003 because Dr. Lamar Hasbrook actually put a big cap on that. So we really didn't hear about it here because he kind of closed those things
that's
down
right. That's
by
thank
using
God,
the
right?
ring method. So we're going to
That's
talk
right.
about that too. But yeah, it was
And
here.
it was here. Good. And that's good. And that's good when it's here and you don't even know it's here. That's good. So, but what they found when they did one study is that they had people in the study who had been vaccinated with smallpox, and they found antibodies, but they had no symptoms. So another reason why we should get, just like with COVID, another reason why we should get the vaccine once it's available is that there are examples of how it's so effective that your body is like shutting it down without you even having any evidence of it. They also found that there were people who had gotten vaccines. Oh, but I think it was these three cases, and I think one of them had it 40 plus years ago, and it was still providing protection. So, man, vaccines. I was so when you hear this kind of data and you think like a scientist, it's hard to refute that type of evidence.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is has there has not been a public health intervention that has had the effect that vaccines
Right.
have had. Probably short of water sanitation.
Right.
So, it's like clean your water, you're gonna protect, the community from getting sick. Right after that, you got vaccines.
And washing your hands, right?
And washing your
Before
hands.
surgery. Yeah.
Right. So, those have been some of the most effective public health interventions ever. So, the people that are anti-vaxxers, I mean, you all have your reasons. You can pick and choose whichever one you want, but like, why would you ever not want your water to be clean, right? Why would you ever want not to have, your hands clean? Why would you ever want not to take a vaccine that can prevent you from being sick? That's in the same vein. We should think about that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Do we need to reach herd immunity with monkeypox like with COVID?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, because right now we're focused on a particular more vulnerable part of our community. I don't know if we're there yet to answer your question. Um, and again, this is sort of like it's like a moving target. So this is the monkeypox, um, although it's not new, but um, to have this many cases this fast, we're still trying to figure things out. So we don't know about herd immunity right now. Right now, we're focused on getting that community. There's something called ring vaccination, which is like a principle. So we're trying to focus on that one person that's infected with monkeypox, to vaccinate everybody around them, and then vaccinate everybody around them, and then so that's the ring. and keep vaccinating there. So we don't have enough data to support that herd immunity is what we need. Because again, that would mean all of us get or at least 80%, 70 to 80%. I don't know, whichever one you want to pick, that getting the vaccine. Right now, we don't have enough data to show that.
Great. And you answered the next question when you talked about the ring vaccination. So thank you so much. You must have been reading my mind. We'll go over to Chief Tally's question in our comment section. Chief Tally says, will lowering the dose be equally as effective?
Well, yeah, that's the reason why the CDC is considering it, because they have shown that using less of the vaccine has been as effective as using more of the vaccine. So that's the only reason why we would ever consider that. It wouldn't be enough just to give somebody a lower dose, just to say we gave you a lower dose, knowing that it's not going to be as effective. So we would not do that unless we've shown that using less vaccine could give you the same amount of immune response, and that's what we're shooting for. We're shooting for that 85%. And if we could do that with less vaccine, then of course, and that means there's more vaccine for to go around for other people, then that's of course what we want to do. But it's absolutely as effective.
Pete, I just wanted to add or just have you clarify something you said earlier. Not that there's anything wrong. It's just that what I wanted to make sure is that when you mention towels, there's nothing about just having a towel that's going to give you monkeypox. It's only towels that have been used by someone who has monkeypox, and the virus or the pustules open, and the towel got some of the juice from that pustule. And then if you use that same towel, then that's the way it's transmitted, but not just by any towel. So I just wanted to be real clear.
Yeah, thanks for that, Terry. That's good. I appreciate that. That's absolutely right on point. So the other thing is we don't want to create hysteria, right? We've been through this before. So let's don't just believe anything you read on the internet. I mean, let's really try to get our sources from a credible source. Go to the CDC website. They're very transparent. Now, they're not perfect. Our public health infrastructure is largely underfunded. Our congressman is fighting like hell to give us the support and the resources that we need. I think we've learned now. We got two situations, COVID and monkeypox, has shown we got to invest more in our public health. Public health is just I want to say it's like, and pardon me, Nick, but it's so non-sexy, right? Because what's sexy is the ER. It's trauma. It's somebody's coming in the ER and they're bleeding, and then we get to pump blood, and then let's shoot them with epinephrine, and that's sexy. But nobody thinks it's sexy to prevent an outbreak from happening, right? But now we know that's just as sexy too. And so we want to make sure that our public health infrastructure is supported so that we're not always doing a catch-up response. We want to be ahead of this thing. But I appreciate that, Terry. You're absolutely right. It's not just any towel, any face mask. It's particularly some that's been used by someone with the monkeypox, and particularly it's been exposed to the rash. So again, if your rash is in the anal genital area, and it's not on your arm, so then if you rub the towel with your arm, we want to make sure we're using sort of common sense about it.
All right, fantastic. We have a LinkedIn user that says, and it kind of leads us straight into, you can't hear me?
I'm on mute too, and I'm talking about Nikki, you're on mute.
Oh, no.
You're okay.
We have a LinkedIn user.
Nikki, we can't hear you.
She's okay.
Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have a LinkedIn user that kind of leads us, it kind of dovetails off the answers that you was just given. That LinkedIn user says, so the virus spreads primarily from skin to skin contact. Is that the only way to spread it? So I think, you had kind of shared that, no, that's not the only way.
Right.
And you gave some examples of how that could be shared just as well.
Right.
So it's the droplets, the skin to skin contact, the towels, the bedding, your pets. So there was a number of things that he shared. Did we miss any? I don't know if we missed any. Yeah. But no, that's not the only way, LinkedIn user. But thank you for that question. Thank you so much. I want to make sure we get all the monkeypox questions out the way. Then we're going to go to Cola's and Johnny G's question. So Mary Ballinger says, sorry, I was late. I might have missed coverage of this, but if we had all of our immunizations before, polio and all of the rest requires, when we were younger, will we need to take a new one of monkeypox? Also, was a smallpox vaccine included in the immunizations that we took back in the day during our school years?
That's a good question. So again, I don't know, Ms. Ballinger, you may have missed, but toward the beginning, we mentioned that right now we're only focused on the communities that are most at risk. And so number one is people who've been exposed to someone with monkeypox. Then number two is people who are most at risk for getting monkeypox. Okay. And then number three is people who handle the monkeypox specimens when they go to the lab and things like that. They may, to Dr. Hampton's point, they may expand that to healthcare workers because we're looking at all those rashes that come in that people are concerned about. So they may expand it to us, but right now it's just those big groups of people. And now in terms of monkeypox, in terms of the all the immunization that you had when you were younger, smallpox.
It wasn't included. It's so funny. I've become an internist, so I don't take care of our babies anymore. Ever since I joined Advocate, maybe 10 years ago. So it wasn't one of those vaccines that was on the list. So when they eradicated it in the 1970 or so, I think, a little bit after that, they actually, the routine use of it stopped. So if you were, so basically if you're 50, or so or younger, you probably didn't get it because we eradicated it. Now, that's why we need to start vaccinating people because we stopped. And again, this is going back to why this is a family, a community. We're all in it together. So imagine those people who are like, I don't want vaccines. Well, how the hell, excuse my French, Nikki, how are we going to eradicate it? Mm-hmm. If we have people who just can't, look at science for what it is and say, I have my rights, which I don't totally respect, but it's hard to eradicate things when we are not all in it together. So it's very touchy feely. I get it, but we eradicated it because we had enough people doing that ring type work that Dr. Pete suggested, and we were able to get it under control. And we're going to have to do something similar. So if we want to eradicate this, we're going to have to get enough people engaged and motivated to get the vaccine. Because again, there's nothing else I can think of that's going to be more effective than that.
So I've got to laugh at this. I'm laughing at this statement that was just sent. That I'm going to read it. It's not a question, but it was a statement. And the young lady says, I am sultry, sexy, and 70. And we got a vaccine and it was all included. So for those of you who may be under that 50 number, Dr. Hampton, it's terrible to ask a woman her age. You may have had it, but your lifestyle is important. So she is sultry, sexy, and 70. All right. Go right ahead, Dr. P.
No, I was just going to say, I agree. I agree with the comment that your lifestyle matters. And so, nutrition is important, getting your sleep, lowering your stress, drinking your water. I mean, those are the things that begin. But then there are some things that just makes sense. It makes common sense. So again, if you have clean water that will help prevent disease, you want to wash your hands, you want to get a vaccine that exists to help protect the community. Now, right now, we don't have enough vaccine for everybody, nor have we had the data to support that vaccinating everybody is what we need. Right now, we need to vaccinate the people that are most at risk, that are around that ring.
Yeah, and I think that what they want to say is that, let's be real clear, just to make clarity for the gay community. There's nothing about being gay that makes you have monkeypox.
That's right.
Okay. What happens, or having men with men's sex, that doesn't make you have monkeypox, except as it is with gonorrhea and syphilis and all the other sexually transmitted diseases. If you have a partner who has that disease, then you're very likely to get it. So I just want to give that clarity so that people think that people who have sex, same sex with men are going to get monkeypox. You don't get monkeypox because you're having sex with a man. You get monkeypox because you had sex with a man who had monkeypox.
Right.
That's the clear. I just want to clarify.
Absolutely.
And to your point, Dr. Mason, that there's some screening questions that we ask to determine who could and should get the vaccine. And so, being in the same sexual network, having, multiple sexual partners. So there are a number of screening questions that we ask that, have you had contact with someone with monkeypox? So those are the screening questions that we ask in order to delineate who should be vaccinated or not. And so to your point, it doesn't have anything to do with having a man who has sex with men. It's just having sex with someone that's in the same sexual network with someone that had monkeypox.
And that same thing could be said for gonorrhea, HIV.
Absolutely.
People need to think about HIV hasn't gone anywhere either.
Right.
No.
So we need to be clear that it's syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV, all of those same things can be transmitted sexually. So we just need to be clear.
And Terry, to your point, when we have rashes in the anal genital area, we are simultaneously treating for a lot of those STIs. So we're treating for gonorrhea, syphilis, and for chlamydia, because it takes about at least 12 hours for the culture to come back for monkeypox. So we don't want to miss a syphilis or a herpes or a gonorrhea rash. So we're treating simultaneously with those for those STIs, because some patients are also co-infected. So you might get the culture back where it says, yes, this person has monkeypox, but they also have herpes and they also have chlamydia, or they might have gonorrhea and herpes, or they might not have monkeypox. So it's sort of it's sort of a moving target, but we do use sort of a public health method, and we try to find out who you've been exposed to, and making sure that we're not missing any infections.
Outstanding. So the word is the viruses can attack anybody. They're not prejudiced. They don't just pick one person. They can pick anybody. So take that away. Remember to share that. Mary Ballinger says, laughing out loud, well added to say thank you. I am grateful and about 10 months away from turning that 70 corner herself, I guess. MC says lifestyle is very important. Carla is laughing, and she is laughing out loud. I want to run up to Johnny G's question really quick. Johnny G says, question, fasting blood glucose was 108 after 14-hour fast. I eat a meat-based keto carnivore. Should I be concerned that it was a little high? And cheers. He also says, well said, Danny, and he thanks the congressman for his statements a little earlier.
Yeah, I would not be concerned because, first of all, the number is not that high. I'm always facing patients who are, they're like, listen, I'm doing this whole low carb thing. What's going on, doc? Why aren't my numbers correct? There's a couple of things to think about. One is the Don phenomena, and the Don phenomena is actually a normal phenomena. It's when your body says, particularly if this is happening in the morning, you wake up and your body's like, you're about to get up, and we're kind of designed to fast. We're really designed to wake up and literally not eat. That's what they did. Our ancestors did this all the time. So with the Down phenomena, your body just makes more cortisol, growth hormone, adrenaline, and things like that, even glucagon. And what happens is it really tells your liver, hey, I need you to pump out some sugar. But the sugar is being pumped out through a process called gluconeogenesis in order to feed you because you're not eating. So sometimes you'll see a little bit of a bump up in the morning when you're after after waking up, if that's when it's happening. Now, you also using that same hormone cortisol. You have to think back over the last 12 hours, 18 hours. Was I under stress? Did I sleep well that night? So there's other factors you want to consider, but I would not be too concerned about a blood sugar that's slightly elevated, because we do have things that our glucose needs to do in our body. And as long, and now if you told me it was 150, I would be really surprised by that. And then you got to look at where you are in your journey. If you're still just starting your journey, and you're still, you have maybe some adipocytes or fat cells that you're still trying to get rid of, you're still on your journey. It may take a while before the metabolic regulation of your hormones is normalized. So that's kind of how I would look at that, and I would not be concerned at all.
Dr. Hanson, I'm high-fiving my patient who got a 108 fasting. I ain't gonna even lie. I ain't gonna say. I'm listening to you talk. I'm like, man, would you tell them that is fantastic? Congratulations, because I mean, let's be honest. I mean, a lot of our patients, man, they're not reaching those kind of numbers, especially if it's done consistently. Like I'm looking for, if you're doing a one and done, that's different. But if you're showing me, like I always have my patients to write down in a booklet. If I can see where most mornings you're doing that, man, I'm high-fiving you, man. Congratulations. Keep up the good work.
I want to throw one more thought in here that's fascinating, because I did interview a carnivore recently, and we talked about, how crazy that must be to do that kind of diet, right? Well, one of the things that I learned, and Dr. Terry Mason is very familiar with the blue zones, and the blue zones have always been considered the types of places on the planet. Italy, Greece. I could live in Greece because that Mediterranean diet is off the chain. I mean, I could. Oh Lord, I don't even want to think about it. And in Japan, and the blue zones have always been thought of as the place where people live longest, and they absolutely do. When you think about Loma Linda in California with the 7-Day Adventists, they're always in the top group of people who live a long life. So you'd be like, well, you say, well, what the heck is a carnivore? Where do they fit in this picture, right? Well, good news is that diet, the low-fat dietary plan works really well. But yes, keto and carnivore works, because if you just Google Hong Kong and longevity, it goes back and forth between blue zones and Hong Kong. But Hong Kong right now is considered the place where people live the longest, and they consume the most meat per capita of any country that's developed. So that's a very odd situation. And then you think about, when you contrast that to the 7-Day Adventists, the Mormons eat a ton of meat, and they also live 7 to 10 years longer than the average American. So I'm bringing this up to make a point. The point is, you choose the path that works for you. And now there's enough information, whether you're looking at cultures or research, that says that you can eat meat and you can eat plants and be successful, but you have to eat real food. You cannot be eating processed food and expect to be successful. And when they look at Hong Kong, for example, they actually have a very good economy. They have access to health care. It costs $15 to go see a doctor, and it's more of a, so they provide care. The social services are off the chain. They allow their, they take breaks, and they do the things that we don't do in this country. And if you then say, well, what's the secret? Is it the diet, or is it these other factors? Only 20% of your longevity is based on your genetics. The other 80% is your epigenetics, the things you do. So if we learn these principles, and maybe we learn to meditate, value sleep. In some countries, they take 2-hour, lunch breaks, and they take that time to meditate, to pray. So we need to adopt those principles and be a little bit more holistic about it. And that way, your diet plus those things, and then you'll wipe away the risk that your genetics brought to the table. So just wanted to bring that out, because it's a little intimidating when you hear somebody saying they're carnivore.
All right.
I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead, Dr. Mason.
No, I said the only thing I would add to that, because I'm not going to get into conversation about meat and all that kind of stuff, because I have obviously very strong, very, very strong opinions about that, based on science. But I would also say that what we need to do is stop this fixation on weight loss. We need to stop it. And right now, what I'm working on is really getting people that the problem is not weight loss. The problem is weight gain. So we have to really work more on how to stop gaining weight than to figure out how to lose it, because that's just a losing battle. So you need, because the problem with it is that you set yourself up for failure because it becomes a project. And when you get to a project and you reach your goal, whatever that amount is, if you're not careful, you'll go right back to some of the same habits and gain the weight back again, which is what the data shows, that most people regain their weight. If you don't have a strategy that takes you and keeps you from gaining weight, then you've not got to where you've not really learned what you need to learn yet. And that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Outstanding. So our next question came in, and the person asked, this is the question that they asked. I received a phone call from a contract tracer that I should be a part of a ring vaccination for monkeypox. I am going to get the vaccine. However, on that day that they gave me, I am scheduled to have my COVID booster and my second shingles vaccine. Should I take them all at one time?
No, I would actually focus on getting the monkeypox vaccine. I would get that first because we're currently in an outbreak. So, and we know that you're maximally immunized after your second dose, particularly 14 days after your second dose. So I would focus on getting that vaccine first, and then get the other ones later.
Okay, outstanding. So Shaw says, I certainly agree, Dr. Mason. MC says, that's what Americans need to do. Fasting really helps out. This is going to be our last question of the evening, because I know you guys hate to hear me say that it's time for us to go. But this question says, sometimes I get an episode of dizziness, strange faint feeling, and my left ear pressure when I move my face muscles. It lasts like 1 to 2 seconds. Could this be from stress?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes. Would I make that the top choice? No. To me, stress is one of those like diagnosis of exclusion moments, right? So when we think about fibromyalgia, we done 100 other tests to make sure we understand. That's like the last thing I'm gonna say is fibromyalgia, although I do think that's a real thing. So, but yeah, I think about the first thing a doctor is gonna do is look in your ear. You have to have somebody look in your ear, make sure it's not clogged up, because that's gonna be the number one thing that can get you in trouble. People, when you have sinus problems, a lot of times you will have pressure in your ear. And sometimes it's subtle, because like I'm sitting outside right now and it's not really an allergic air in the air right now. But if I have allergies, it can flare up just enough to give me symptoms, and then it'll go away because it's not that bad. Obviously, if you have a cold and things like that, you have to think about. And I think those are kind of the things that come to mind. We think about Meniere's disease, where you tend to have, the ringing with it. And obviously you may have some hearing issues with it. If it's, so those are the things that come to mind. The TMJ disorders can kind of cause ear pain, where you have issues in that joint, that tympanomandibular joint. So I think, with any of this stuff, if it's not that bad and it's not bothering you, it's probably not a big deal. Fungal things can sneak up on you and be very subtle, so you have to be careful about fungal infections. I would just get somebody to look in that ear, and then at least put some eyes on it. And if they don't see anything and it's not really causing a lot of trouble, it's probably not a big deal. If things get crazy, we may have to have you see an ear, nose, and throat doc who can probably look a little bit more closer. But it's not sounding like a serious matter. But of course, this is informational purpose only. So just throwing it out there.
And I'll just say, so everything has to be taken within context. So within context, it means, your past medical history, the evolution of the symptom itself, how long it's been going on, how bad is it, how bad was it when it first started. All those things are the context that we would look at to determine, is this a stroke or is it a inner ear infection, and here's some drops and have it, and go have a Coke and a smile. But if we think that you have a bunch of, if you have high blood pressure, diabetes, a hyperlipidemia, high cholesterol, you know this might be signs of what we call a TIA, transient ischemic attack, right? The sort of pre-stroke that might be happening. Or it could not be that, and it could be just a regular inner ear infection, or it could be your sinuses. So you really do, to Dr. Hampton's point, have somebody take a look at it, but they're going to ask you some questions. They're not just random questions. They're questions to put this within context. And those questions, depending on your answer, might determine if you're going to get an MRI or if you're going to get a prescription for Benadryl. Or they might send you to the ER. So I would have someone go and see someone. So to Dr. Hampton's point, this is not we're not going to play your doctors. We do a good job of answering questions and giving you perspective. But at the end of the day, you do need to go and see somebody so they can ask those questions and also take a look at that ear.
All right. I want you guys to actually do a screenshot of Mary Ballinger's comment that she made about you all. And on your days when you are not feeling your best, I want you to read it, because she called you all angels and said that this is just a blessing to her. So if the time wasn't so short, I would read it, but I think I'm going to capture it and I'm going to read it on next week. But I want you guys to take, because everyone needs a little self-care every now and then, even you guys, because you are so phenomenal, as she said. So I want you guys to make sure that you screenshot this. And when you are having a bad day, when all of your patients come in with bad numbers, no matter what you've been telling them, I want you to read this and then know that the next week that their numbers will be better. Dr. Mason, you look like you are itching to say something, and I think I know what you got to say.
Yeah, well,
go ahead on this, share it.
No. I just want to make sure that everybody knows, and we'll talk about it maybe next week more. We are really we've had just a phenomenal season with our farm. And we have, right now we have over 1,400 pounds of collard greens. And we've got 3 different types of melons, and we've got just everything. And we're doing this as a community-sponsored agricultural project. So it's really for the community, and we need the community to participate. So if you want to participate, I can give you a number, 708-816-1132, 708-816-1132. We'll have 3 different types of watermelon this year. We have 3 different types of kale. We have pink-eye purple hull peas. We have squash. We have eggplant. We have all of those things. And you call and we'll tell you how you can partake in this project and help support agriculture. We are also working with returning citizens. So we have the brothers out there that, they're getting a livable wage doing this work with this project. So we need the support to make sure that we can continue to do that. And we ask you to do that. I want to thank Congressman Davis for his support in the past, and anyone else that's been on the panel for their support. Regularly, the full share now, we used to be about 23 pounds of food. But because of such bounty we've had this year, the weather's been great, everything's been great. Now the full share is closer to 50 pounds of food every other week that you get with your subscription. And the half share is about half that every other week. So call the number, we'll get you the information, 708-816-1132. Thank you very much, Nikki, for giving me this opportunity.
Is there a website also, Doc? Is there a website?
Yeah, Mother Carr's Farm. You can go to Mother Carr's Farm on the Vernon Park Church of God website. You can go to my website, terrymasonmd.org. You can, and the Health Policy Institute of Chicago, that website. There's 3 different places you can go and look at it, but any of those places will give you more information and be happy to send anybody who wants more. But it is something that we're looking to expand, and we want to make sure that we do more and that we could have we just have a dearth of food insecurity. I mean, not dearth. We have a dearth of the kind of foods that we need in our community. And we really do need to be thinking about how do we begin to build and establish a better food infrastructure, because we're in trouble in our community. All you got to do is go in any of these communities and see that we got problems because we don't have enough outlets for really good food. And this food is when you're a member, when you come out to pick up if you don't do the delivery service, which costs a little more, if you don't do delivery, when you come out, the food that you get and the food that the restaurants we supply get, I give you like Majani's. Majani's gets collard greens from us. And they get the greens picked on a Friday. And they're in the pot by Friday afternoon and being served that evening. That's farm to table. Mm-hmm. And that's what we want. And you can get, when you come and pick up your food, if you're a member and you call the number and they'll tell you exactly what you need to do and what it costs, you get your food. It's picked hours before you come to pick it up. So it's really still full of the nutrients that we really need. And we do it all sustainably. We do it organically. We use no pesticides whatsoever. And we also make sure that we replenish the earth after the season in order to put the minerals back in that were extracted so that we can have healthy crops for the next week. And the last time I give the number, 708-816-1132.
Outstanding. So I remember the congressman talking about all the corn that they had to get together one day, him and Ms. Davis. So I definitely wanted you to share that you guys' crops was there, because the congressman said they had corn coming out their ears, but they had corn. So with that being said, our time is near and we're going to do our Until Next Mondays. Well, I never really share. And those of you who really, really know me know that I'm really private. But I am going to share one thing, because someone asked this question a couple times before. And they had asked, can you really come off medication? And, it's always that question. And they say they hear that people can come off. And this one particular person who is an adamant viewer asked me, because they kind of know some of the things that I've kind of dealt with my own health. And can you come off medication? Well, I'm gonna give you a really brief story. We thought I had something else going on because I was really dizzy, couldn't kind of stand up, was holding on to stuff. When I got up, really disoriented, we thought that I was thinking maybe that I had a really bad case of vertigo, because I was driving not too long ago and I felt like my car was sideways and I had to stop and get out the car and try to get myself together. And the friend of mine who was in the car with me drove, because I just couldn't seem to get everything kind of in focus. And I stayed so dizzy and it really bothered me. And somebody here is nodding, don't nod, because you're not supposed to tell that you actually know. But just so you know, not that I am off medication, because I'm not completely off blood pressure medicine, but I will tell you that we had to lower my dosage of my medication, because apparently I have gotten to a point now, and my goal is to actually come off medicine. But we have apparently come to a point where my blood pressure medicine was too strong. And I had all of these crazy vertigo type symptoms, which it was bad. It was bad. It was bad that week. It was bad over the weekend until I was tempted to go to the emergency room. So dizzy until it would make you throw up. But it was all because my blood pressure medicine was too strong. So that was a good thing. I am happy to know that my dosage was cut in half. We're going to see how that do for a few days, and then we'll move on. So to your question, can you come off medication? I'm on my way. I'll keep you posted and I'll let you know. So I think we can all do it. Change some things in my diet, change a little lifestyle stuff. It's workable. We can all do it together. So thank you so much for asking. And I did tell you I would share it. So I am sharing it. But trust me, nobody wants that dizzy vertigo type stuff. I'm still not right. I'm not right yet, but it's going to be okay. So that's my Until Next Monday. We can all do it. Doug, What's your until next Monday? Is Doug frozen? I think Doug is frozen. So if he gets unfrozen, we're coming right back to him. Dr. Mason, oh, there he is, Doug. You're until next Monday.
I just want to really echo what Dr. Pete said about getting your information from a reliable source. I mean, a few years ago, they looked at the internet and said 95% of the information about healthcare is either inaccurate or misleading. So you got to be very, very careful what you ask, where you go, and what you're trying to find out. So again, I just want to support Dr. Pete. Make sure that you contact your healthcare provider and see what they recommend if you're going to go on the internet to look for information.
You're absolutely right. And I love that about Pete, because Pete shared something one day when this person first posted that question about medication. And Pete shared medication doesn't necessarily cure all the time, but it's like a pacifier, and you've got to make some changes to get to your cure. So know that you can do it. So I know Doug gave he gave an extension of his meaning of what he was saying about Dr. Pete. But yeah. Dr. Pete, sometimes you are really profound in your statements, Dr. Pete. Very good.
I'm only reflective of this esteemed panel that you put together, Nikki. You and Brother Davis, I appreciate you guys. You put it together. I just reflect what they say.
All right. Dr. Terry Mason, you're until next Monday.
Well, I would say to the listeners and viewers that you have had an amazing opportunity to listen to some very, very well-informed physicians and others. And the information we give you is for you to think about. Sometimes you might need to discuss it with your own private physician if there's some things that you want to change, if your physician isn't one of the ones on the panel. So I would say take heed to what you've heard. And if you have questions, don't be afraid next week to ask the questions to get clarified. But really just know that we are all here, and our only motivation here is to make sure you're better informed so that you can ask better questions and make better decisions for yourself. And I thank the Congressman and Nikki for providing this forum.
Outstanding. Dr. Tony Hampton, you're until next Monday.
I want to just piggyback on that question about can you reverse or get off medicine. I took 3 people off medicine Friday. So as a way to assist people, I try to put things together to help them understand. Literally, an episode of my podcast, I actually talked about what's a way to approach your diabetes and your blood pressure. It actually was the same way, but most people don't realize that their blood pressure is an inflammation problem. And so, in fact, 80% of all chronic illnesses are related to inflammation. So what I shared in that video, and I'll share it in the show notes, is that there is a way to do it. And if you resolve that issue, which is why we talk about diet and lifestyle and stress and all those things and sleep, because when you do those things well, you reduce stress and increase sleep, you eat well, what happens is you reduce inflammation. Now, it takes a minute, as Nikki has suggested, to fix those arteries that are stiffer than they need to be. You can reverse diabetes within weeks or a month or 2 easily. One of our regular attendees, Gwen Butler, who's normally with us, she reversed it in 45 days and had been on insulin for 11 years. So you can do it, but you just need a little guidance. So I'll make sure to share that video that kind of gives you a how to think about it, and then start walking towards wellness, because we are not on this planet to be sick. All the things that we need to be healthy are right here on this planet. That's why Dr. Mason's trying to grow some of those things and expose people to those things that they should have been exposed to previously. So that'll be my final thoughts for tonight.
Outstanding. Dr. Pete, you're until next Monday.
I thought about it to incorporate all of what my colleagues said. Walk, sleep, eat, don't eat. And I say don't eat, I mean fasting is helpful. It's known to improve something called apoptosis, which is cellular regeneration. Um, and I say eat, I mean eat whole foods. A hot dog is not a whole food. Okay, it tastes good. Try, I understand, but it's not a whole food. So stop fooling yourself into thinking that. But again, exercise, get your sleep, get your rest, laugh at something. Um, and I have a personal challenge for myself is that I have to find something to laugh at every single day. And I mean, I mean, I want to be like almost on the floor laughing. That was the joy of going to school with that guy, Dr. Hampton. We laughed every day under massive amounts of information that we were studying and stressed out. We was laughing, and on top of all of that. So, you know, that's important for your health. And so I don't want us to forget those things. And then of course, if you know somebody that's at a higher risk for monkeypox, please direct them toward the Chicago Department of Public Health or Howard Brown, or just their primary care office. I know a lot of places don't have access to the vaccine, but for sure Howard Brown does, and for sure the Chicago Department of Public Health does. If you know someone that is at risk, or if you think they're at risk, just give them Howard Brown's number. I'll put it in the chat.
Outstanding, simply outstanding. Just want to remind everyone that the Congressman's Back to School Parade, Picnic, World Health Day, and Technology in the Park, and all those great things are going on Saturday, August 20th. Meet us in Columbus Park. The kickoff for the parade is at 10 a.m., coming northbound down Central, starting at Bloomingdale and Central, leading into Columbus Park. Everything that you could possibly need for your youth in reference to health care and school supplies will be there and be available. It will also have health activities and resources for our adults just as well. So we want to remind you guys to meet us at Columbus Park on Saturday, August 20th. Meet us there. Make sure that you are there. Also, I want to tell you that the collard green party is going to be at Dr. Mason's house as he got 14,000 pounds of it. The collard green party is going to be over at Dr. Mason's house. So the Congressman, the one who makes this all possible for us and teaches us each and every day that true wealth is health. Take us home, Congressman.
Well, I only had two questions. One, how do you make some of these things taste the way you want them to taste? And do you have any okra to go with it, Dr. Mason?
Not yet. Not yet. Give us time. And, you know, we're going to be trying to move from 25 acres, which is like 25 football fields, to 50 next year.
Well, you know, generally, if I can have a little bit of okra, it doesn't matter what the rest is. I mean, that spices it up and makes it well. Let me just say thanks again. We're going to have a lot of federal people in town in the next few days. We're going to have the head of Health Resources Administration in town. We're going to be visiting the Primo Center and talking about the MACV program, the Maternal Infant Health Program, and how that works and why it's important. And so we're switching a little bit to children. We're also going to have the National Association of Community Health Centers in town next week. I'm going to welcome them on the 24th, I believe it is, and that Sunday afternoon. But they're going to be in town pretty much the whole week, talking about every aspect of healthcare that one can think about. And of course, this agency, HRSA, provides a lot of the federal money over the last 10 years or so They've put $66 billion into healthcare in my congressional district through the hospitals, the grants, the health centers. 66 billion is, tidy little sum of money. And it does take money to make these things happen. And so if we invest, when people talk about what we pay, I take the position that if we're maximizing the potential for people to live healthy, productive lives, then whatever the cost is, it's not too much. I mean, what do you want to live for? You want to be happy. You want to be healthy. You want to be productive. And so, whatever you have to pay to make that happen, it's not wasted, it's an investment. Whatever you put in, that's what you get out. Life can be forever for all of us, whatever it is that we make it. I end with something a poet said. The poet said that I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening time when I counted my scanty store. But I found that life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, then you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire, and yet to my dismay, whatever price I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. Whatever you put into it, that's exactly what you get out of it. Invest, you get a return. Little investment, little return. Much investment, great return. And collard greens will help you every time. Have a good night. Enjoy. And we'll get our share. All right. So long.